Washington State. The Cascade Mountains that stretch from Oregon to Canada are some of the most rugged terrain in the whole country. For much of the year, these mountains are soaked in rain, making travel in the backcountry a difficult proposition. In the winter, they're covered under a thick blanket of snow. For a few months each summer, these mountains open up, making backcountry travel by vehicle a possibility. Our mission? To establish a backcountry route for motorcycles and 4x4 vehicles that's open to the public and travels across the entire state from Oregon to Canada. We call it the Washington Backcountry Discovery Route.
Well, the Washington Backcountry Discovery Route is a route across Washington State from Oregon to British Columbia for four-wheel drive vehicles and for adventure motorcycles, dual sport motorcycles, that uses mostly forest lands and public property to safely and legally cross the state.
In the spring of 2010, Bryce Stevens and Andrew Cole had an idea to create a backcountry route across the state of Washington. It's been done before by other riders, but nobody has ever documented the trip on film, with a website and free GPS tracks made available to the public. When the idea of the new route won support of the Overland Society, Bryce and Andrew decided to make their vision a reality. We've assembled a team of adventure riders from the Northwest. Each one has a specific skill that's critical to the success of the mission.
Well, my background is firmly rooted in the outdoors. I've been a hiker and a mountain biker for many years, starting mostly in college and after college, and eventually got back into motorcycling as an adult here.
Bryce knows how to read maps, and he'll be the chief architect of our route across the state.
Well, Washington State, as far as I know, doesn't have an established route like this, and it should. Oregon has its backcountry discovery route, and Washington has an amazing mountain range running right through the middle of it called the Cascade Mountain Range. And we have almost an endless connection of national forest lands and some state forest lands and other public property that makes it just a no-brainer.
My background is I'm the CEO of Remote Medical International. We work internationally providing remote medical support and equipment to places like Antarctica, Africa, Southeast Asia. And so I've always had a love for that, and the sports and the kind of hobbies that I've always done have gone to those places.
Andrew is a backcountry paramedic whose specialty is search and rescue, survival, and medicine.
The Washington Backcountry Discovery Route is a way to get off-road from Washington State, starting in the south and heading north. And the idea is that we don't touch pavement. And so an off-road route through kind of the remote side of Washington in a way to explore the whole entire landscape.
I guess I've always been attracted to the challenges of motorcycle filmmaking. You have to carry all of your gear on a motorcycle, in addition to everything else that you have to carry to survive in the wilderness.
Sterling Noreen has traveled around the world as a motorcycle filmmaker. On this trip, he's a writer, cameraman, and director, all rolled into one.
You drive out your driveway and you hang a left or a right, and bang, you're on your way. If you need to recharge and need an adventure, it's just put the key in the ignition and head out. Rest is just details.
Helge Peterson spent 10 years traveling around the world on his motorcycle as a photographer and journalist before founding his company, Globe Riders. Helge knows the mechanics of motorcycle survival and will be instrumental in our success on this trip.
What I'm looking forward to on this ride is really just going from Oregon all the way to the Canadian border. I've been all over this state, been over many of these off-road passes, but to put them all together into one ride from Oregon to Canada is just going to be great.
Tom Myers is the president and owner of Touratech USA, a company from Seattle that imports aftermarket parts for adventure motorcycles. Earlier this year, Tom won the Adventure Riders Challenge on a BMW HP2, proving that his riding skills are second to none. If anyone knows how to handle these big bikes in difficult terrain, Tom is the one.
We have discovered how much fun this is, getting out and doing these week-long trips in the backcountry, and we just wanted to go big with the Washington Backcountry Discovery Route. It's just a great feeling to create something like this that you know is going to go on for a long, long time, and there are going to be a lot of people that are impacted by it, and a lot of folks that are going to get out and see parts of Washington that they never would have seen if we hadn't done the project.
Paul Gillian is the general manager of Touratech USA. Paul's industry experience means that we'll be set up with the right gear to make our trip a reality.
So we brought a lot of fun, interesting and new things with us on this trip, and we're going to be testing them, giving feedback, and also just learning all the finer points so that we can advise customers, make sure that we're getting customers into the right things for them, and just seeing how the different products work in different environments out in the backcountry. The most challenging part of this trip were the 3 days prior to us leaving, trying to get all the details arranged. The last trip we did was with 4 people, including me, and it was a lot easier logistically. With 8 people, it was a lot to coordinate. There were a lot more sponsors, a lot more companies involved, and it didn't get a lot of sleep in the last couple of days before the trip. This is your bag of tricks over here. Okay. There's your helmet. So here's your goggles, climb base layer. Here's your jacket. So this is the most technically advanced riding gear ever invented. It's been pretty hectic trying to round up all the sponsor details, make sure all the companies that made contributions are getting represented with decals to go on the motorcycles. Just trying to get everything assigned to the right people and make sure we get the bikes all set up and ready to go for the trip.
I have some opinions on what the essential parts that you need for a trip like this. And I think first of all would be knobby tires. You should be carrying a spare tube, at least one. You need the tools to remove and replace a punctured tube. And then on your bike, you need some protection items. A skid plate is essential, and I think crash bars are pretty essential.
This is new for me. I have to really think about what to pack, and it's not going in a backpack, it's going on a motorcycle. I've got extra tools and parts and things to think about. And luckily I have a lot of people who have done these types of things and people I can lean on to help me figure out what to carry and how to pack light and be smart about the planning of it.
I have a lot of packing to do, but we're really excited, looking forward to it. I'll probably stay up most of the night getting ready, and we'll be, once we let out the clutch and hit the road, I'll be fine. But for now, it's been a pretty hectic couple of weeks.
The day before the ride begins, we head down to the Columbia River Gorge, a national scenic area and the start of the Washington Backcountry Discovery Route.
We're here at the beginning of the Backcountry Discovery Route. We're on the Oregon side on the Columbia River with Washington right across the waterway. So we're on day 1 of a 7-day trip.
The ride begins in the small town of Stevenson.
Stevenson is a scenic town right on the river. It's got a hotel in town that you can stay out. It's got a brew pub that is absolutely amazing, the Walking Man Brewery. It's got a coffee shop. It's got everything you need to stay in for the evening and to get going in the morning.
Joining us in Stevenson, a chase vehicle with a driver and a backcountry chef. Average riders could do this trip in a few days. Because we're making a movie, we've given ourselves 1 week to complete the journey.
When you have a group this big, the logistics get too cumbersome, and it cuts in on your time to shoot and make the video. So we made the decision to bring a chase vehicle.
We had food for 8, beer for 8, ice for 8, water for 8. And we basically had the entire cargo capacity of the Jeep filled in.
We have 7 days to make it across the state, from the Columbia River Gorge in the south to Canada in the north. The first part of the route begins just outside of Stevenson and travels north through the Gifford-Pinchot National Forest along the western slope of the Cascade Mountains.
The first day was more in the west side of the mountains, so it was thicker forest. It was tighter, not as many views, but some fun roads.
It's an easy transition in. There is some loose gravel in some sections, but that's the most technically difficult part. Everything else is pretty straightforward.
The route that we've chosen shows off many different, what I would call zones of this state or of our mountains. It actually begins going north on the west side of the Pacific Crest, or the Pacific Crest Trail even, which is a wetter side of the mountain. So you go through this lush, more wet zone of the state of the Cascades, actually rounding the base of Mount Adams, a beautiful volcano.
This is great. I am so hot. This is like the perfect thing to do.
So the seepage, the water that just seeps down into the cave, freezes in the wintertime, and even though it's really hot out right now, the ice is melting, but it's melting slowly because there's a huge air mass that's trapped at the bottom of the cave that just keeps the thing cold like a refrigerator.
I think it's really cool on a trip like this where you're out riding bikes and you're really hot and dusty, and boy, you come to the ice cave here,
yeah.
It's like a little bit of paradise in the hot day like today.
It'd be a good place to camp on a hot weekend. We could test our cold weather sleeping bags in the bottom of that thing anyway.
Well, I got more pictures to take. I know you guys got more riding to do, so
let's do it.
Let's do it.
When we started planning this, I was having so much fun looking at all of the roads and all of the different ways to cross the state. And we think that this route across Washington is just a starting point. I think that a lot of people look at this and say, hey, you should have gone this way through this one section so you see this beautiful lake, or this cross over this mountain, or maybe dip into a beautiful valley. But the Washington Backcountry Discovery Route is just it's a route north to south. There are going to be many variations and all sorts of opinions which are going to be welcomed.
The Washington State, I think, is fairly unique in that we've got a lot of diversity in our landscape. We have, glaciers, we have oceans, we have desert, and I think there's something unique about being off-road in that you get to experience Washington kind of natural beauty versus seeing that, kind of corridor that's protected on either side of a public road. You get to see it for what it really is. And if we can establish a Washington Backcountry Discovery Route, somebody can conceivably drive from Canada to California off-road. So I think for us, being from Washington State, it's kind of a point of pride and also a validation of how amazing some of the places that we've both been are. There's a lot of areas that are really inaccessible in Washington State. It's a fairly remote areas that we're going through. And so this route kind of takes people through some of the most majestic and beautiful spots in Washington State. And so our idea in really establishing this route and making it available to the public was to ensure that people get to see what really is in their own backyard.
The ideal bike for this trip, I think, is really 650 or larger.
I'm riding a BMW HP2. I've got the big tanks on it. It's really a great bike for this kind of trip. This is really what I like this bike for, is long distance camping every night and riding on rough terrain.
I decided to get the KTM 990. And it's an amazing bike that was incredibly intimidating when I first got it. And recently I did a long day trip that finally helped me get through that, and I felt so comfortable. By the end of the ride, I realized that I'd kind of become one with the bike, and I was just waiting for that to happen, and I'm so excited to be riding this bike now.
I am riding probably the biggest and heaviest bike of everyone. I've got a R1200 GS Adventure, which is a big bike, but with knobby tires and a lot of caffeine, I think I'll be able to keep up. It's not undoable, and for me, as the beginner on the trip, navigating around with this bike with a couple of good technique points, maybe a Rawhide Adventures course or something like that, can easily set you up for success.
I was lucky enough to be able to ride an F800 GS. The 800 is just the perfect blend for those open, straight gravel sections. You can really go, 60, 70 miles an hour comfortably. When you're off on the rough tracks and the ruts and the rocks and the Jeep trails, it's still a blast to ride. It carries the weight perfectly. Of course, the panniers were perfect. I did have one tip over with the bike at slow speed, so I did make a few little dents, but we were able to straighten that out and have an excellent time.
The ride along the top of Bethel Ridge is one of the many scenic highlights of the trip.
You look at maps, and even though you've got contours and it seems at times maybe three-dimensional, it's not. And you get out there and you realize, oh my gosh, there's this huge valley to my right and this enormous mountain to my left. I didn't see that on the page. There are several places that I just went, wow, this is 10 times better than I expected it to be.
I've been wishing I could do this for 10 years. And one of the things that stopped me, aside from just, getting involved in business and having so much to do, was that there wasn't a clear path of gravel across the state. There were large sections of asphalt that you had to use. And that was one of the reasons that I just thought, well, I'm just going to wait until I find a gravel route to replace that. And then here we are 10 years later, and these guys just did it anyway.
People talk all about there's types of Google Maps and things that people have established these routes. It's just that there's nobody who's, to my knowledge, that's done it and then offered it to the public. To do it all in one piece, I think, is a new experience for both of us, even though we spend a lot of time in the area or in individual areas. Really kind of taking it all in through one kind of trip, I think, is going to be something different. I think the big challenge for one is the time that it takes to actually establish this thing. We're overflying it. Bryce and I are driving it. We're doing a lot of different things to make sure that it's a viable and kind of long-term endeavor.
The first day of the ride, I think, is mainly to get to the second day, which is incredible. Second day has ridge tops with sheer cliffs on one side that have incredible views, and then it ducks into the forest, and the forest is lush, and then back out again into these arid mesas, but always you have incredible views. Today is a great day.
Today, I've nailed 2 different obstacles with my panniers and ripped my pannier off twice. Luckily, it's flexible, and I was able to bend it back into shape and get the lid back on. I'm amazed at how well these have worked today, because both times I nailed something incredibly hard. But otherwise, the bikes are running great, and it's been a lot of fun to ride this. Incredible. Today has been a lot of fun.
Well, I'm going to see it looks like a cut here. That's why I carried an extra spare inner tube, because that you cannot plug. I was riding way too low pressure. I had like 20, and I should have had 30 going this fast on these rocks here. So this is a typical impact puncture. We're going with too little air in the tire, and it just hit something and it just cut it open. So I'm not even going to try and patch it. I'm just going to put an inner tube on this.
I got that on helmet cam!
I think this route have all kind of challenges, from the easy in between asphalt, we all know that, till the more sandy, rocky. I think probably the rocks going uphill or downhill is, for me, was the most challenging on this. Then it is also the challenge of being awake and focused, because you are going down road you've never been before. Don't go on the left side around the corner. Yeah, you're in the middle of the wilderness, but it just takes one vehicle to be in that time and that space, and your trip can be over. Your life can be compromised.
The highlight of my trip was definitely the improvement that I've made as a rider. Compared to this group, my whole riding experience equaled what most of these guys do on a single trip. So by every single measure, I was the junior rider on the trip. The fact that I could ride in front of Helge or Tom and they'd give me feedback on my riding, and getting feedback and seeing that improvement in my riding was definitely the highlight.
When you come to these rocky sections of loose, large, well, anything from fist size to baby head size, you want to get up to the speed that you want and you feel comfortable at, not too slow, and roll through them. And you want to stay loose in it, going through it. If you grip the handlebars too tightly, a rock's going to toss you one way or the other. If you're a little bit loose on it, that rock can just glance your handlebar and you're back to straight and roll on through. I was really surprised at how well everyone made it through these sections. I mean, I consider them, I would never take a novice on them, but these guys just during the trip picked up these skills and they went through them just fine.
Weaved around a stump and hit something. I thought that I had hit my front shock, looked at my shock and didn't see anything, but what I hit was my crash bar and kind of kicked my front end up. I didn't wreck, but it ripped the bolt out, hit my crash bar, and my crash bar was hanging off my bike, which is never good. And then it looks like it struck to the engine cylinder guard, but no damage to the engine cylinder. It's a little bit damage to the guard. So we're just going to pack this thing away and be good to go.
Into day 2, we got more into the eastern portion of the state where things really opened up. The landscapes changed dramatically. You could smell the sagebrush and see for literally hundreds of miles from the tops of these ridges.
One thing I liked about it is to be able to see far ahead, and you see the dust of whoever's leading up ahead. You're going there, and when you look back, you see the guy behind. It feels like an expedition.
Catching up to us on a KTM 990 adventure, Radek Burkett from Canada. Radek recently raced in the Baja 1000 and did very well. Now, he's part of our team for a couple of days.
My first impression, the big bikes, the 1200s, they're doing amazingly well, and it's both the bike and the rider. It's great to be riding with a group that, there's no weak link. Everybody's ripping so well on those bikes. first intentional overnight trip. Got stocked up on all the food, and I wanted to see if I could actually, if I had all the gear to successfully do a multi-day trip. The guys have an awesome cook here. He's making great food, and I declined from from feasting on that because I wanted to see if I actually had all the things necessary to make my own, survive on my own.
Our friends at Rawhide Adventures sent Chef Eddie along to make sure we were well fed, and the food tonight is out of this world. It's really good.
I got a chicken stew with a little bit of onions, chilies, and a few secret ingredients just to spice it up and make a nice dish. How about that, my friends?
Thanks,
Hey,
Eddie.
cheers.
This is wonderful.
Thank you, Eddie. To Eddie.
Here's Daddy.
Very good.
I like getting up high above 6,000 feet where the types of trees change, the type of ground cover changes, the smell of the forest changes, and you just don't get there that often in this state. If you get over 6,000 feet, you got to work a little bit. You got to be looking for that. You can only do that in a few months in the summertime. And so everything looks so fresh and remote. I like that.
Last time we were here, you could see Mount Rainier to the south. Now here we are today at 6,300 feet of elevation up on Lion Rock, and it is socked in. Last time we were here, you could see mountains that were hundreds of miles away. It was blue sky, beautiful. There's this great tabletop mountain that's off here to the left, and today we can barely see our hands in front of our faces. It's just socked in. It was like a t-shirt flip-flop weather last time.
Continuing on, we descend the mountain, and with the loss in elevation come the return of blue sky.
Wow. You don't want to miss this corner. Holy cow.
In the distance, our route north.
That's Wenatchee, the town of Wenatchee. And then if you follow this brown grassy hill up to the left, that's the ridge top that we're going to ride, and then up about to the highest point there, and then we're going to drop over the other side to Ardenvohr.
For this project, we're attempting to make an entirely off-road route across the state, which hasn't been easy.
With our version of this cross-state route, we've tried to minimize the amount of paved roads that will be used. In a few places, it has to be done. There are some obstacles in the way that require that paved roads are used, but in many cases they're very scenic and will be a pleasant part of this trip. Overall, I think it's 650 miles or about that. We'll find out when we're officially done. And it should be an established route that people use from here on, hopefully into the future.
To establish this route, we're staying on established roads. We've made a commitment to not establish new roads or establish new routes or side trips that aren't already in existence.
We're following established roads through public areas to our camping destinations and scenic viewpoints and all of the places we want to see, the landmarks and places that we want to see on our trips. It's really not that much different than the trips that I've done backpacking or trips that other people might envision in the backcountry. I think that we all need to realize that this is a very viable and important way to travel in the backcountry.
Our scouting trip was done earlier in the year with a combination of 4x4 vehicles and off-road motorcycles. Each scouting trip provided us with new information about the roads through the backcountry, and we encountered several challenges along the way.
There's not a single soul to be seen. I can't see any civilization. We haven't seen a car since we left Ardenbohr in the Eniat Valley. This has just been unbelievable. What a surprise. I didn't know this was going to be so good.
Driving with the top down and the windshield down and have the wind hit you in the face, and you don't have to wear a helmet, you're in a seatbelt into a secure vehicle with a roll bar. There's something to that.
Here we are on Forest Road 233, and it's turning into a jungle. I don't know if we're going to be able to get through it. I don't know if we're going to be able to turn around. Oh, you can hear the scraping. Oh, I'm going to have pinstripes on the truck all the way down it. Oh, that one hurt. We made it. Here's the crux of the trip. Very narrow, very rugged road.
There's a lot of different terrain that we're going off. Sometimes it's really steep, other times it's really sandy and flat, but this last half mile that we've been going on has been downhill and the brush is leaning in on us, so we're having to kind of push things out as we're going through.
We've made it 50% or so, maybe 3/4 of the way on the steep section, so.
By now, the Toyota FJ is covered with scratches from the thick branches.
Well, these older vehicles, they're built pretty solid, and they're not really made to take you somewhere real fast, but they're really made to take you anywhere you want to go. Going through the brush can be a little challenging to steer through and go over rocks, but also at the same time push things out of the way so you don't get smacked in the face with a limb or something.
So we're coming down the ridge. We've lost about 2,000 feet of elevation gain, and we're heading down toward the west side of Lake Chelan. We decided to use a road less traveled, and current betting poll puts our chances of getting through this road at about 25%. Little road maintenance and flip-flops.
I hope this goes. We've still got, we still have several miles to go, so cross our fingers and hope it goes.
The road goes through, and we make it down to Lake Chelan. By evening, we're back up in the mountains to the east.
Exploring around here takes me back to my childhood of seeing the old exploration movies, the safaris in Africa. It's incredibly dry in some areas. There's desert, but it reminds me a lot of the Sierra Nevadas, where I'm from. And I have a new respect, a new understanding of Washington State now. It's beautiful.
Back on the motorcycle expedition, we still have an ethic of low-impact travel through the backcountry.
The group that we're going with has profound respect for the area. Our bikes are quiet. We have very limited aggressive driving. It's people who have a genuine respect and ethic of preservation and respect for the animals and the environment traveling through this really amazing place.
The view from Chumstick Mountain is one of the best on the entire route. Looking at the Cascade Mountains in the distance, it seems incredible to think that we're so close to Seattle, but this feels like a different world, far removed from the hustle and bustle of urban life. We're now roughly halfway through our ride along the new route, and this seems like a good place to raise the flag given to us by the Overland Society, a group dedicated to environmentally responsible vehicle-dependent travel through the backcountry.
We carry with us their mission and their message, which is something that is very meaningful to us and matches up with the way we intend to travel in the backcountry. And so it's an important part of this trip. We get to get their message out and travel and take some pictures with their flag and hopefully eventually get the word out about overlanding and the society and their message.
And so however people get out here to enjoy it, if it's car camping, that's fine too, but anything you can do to get people active and enjoy the outdoors, that is your only hope to protect it. It could easily be the next generation says, well, what's out there? Well, there's nothing out there. Nothing of interest out there.
We stop in the one-store town of Ardenvohr for gasoline and basic rations.
We just finished road 5801 coming off of Mo Ridge. Sandy, dirty, rutted, and so fun to ride. But when you're following somebody, you catch a lot of dust, and it'll do this to your face. Lots of dirt and dust around your nose, but it's so worth it.
All right, Tom.
So you're gonna hit?
Yeah, I'm gonna kick
Okay,
off.
well, it's great to ride with you
Yeah,
again.
it was awesome.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, shit. It was an awesome trip. Too bad I have to cut it short, but I don't know. The wife's calling. No, just kidding.
That was my favorite section of the whole trip so far. I think I've said that 3 times today, but the route just keeps getting better and better. This was this soft, almost powdery-like stuff that makes these perfectly smooth corners, and no one's really used this road much, so there's a lot of grass and things that are kind of holding it down, and just phenomenal. And it's completely open, so you can see your buddy that's 3 switchbacks behind you coming up. When you're making the corner, you can see your dust cloud and you can see the dust cloud of the guy behind you. This was 10 out of 10 today.
Now it's the bike's turn to go through the jungle.
I was here 2 weeks ago on the scouting trip, and we didn't know if this road was going to go through or not. Fortunately, it did go through, and so we knew this was going to be a real highlight for the rest of the guys here. We wanted to surprise them, throw it at them at the last minute, so we didn't tell them anything about this little descent through the woods here, and So as you can see, it's been pretty cool. Everyone's having a spectacular time.
Yeah, the jungle section is great. It's kind of, you know, you're parting all of the vegetation with the bike and laying things down and picking your way through. It's a lot of fun.
I cannot believe you drove your cruiser through this.
I know.
Yeah.
This is amazing.
Unbelievable.
It's a lot of fun on the bike.
We're here at the height of the summer, and the weather couldn't be better. It's a fantastic summer day with a little breeze, and it's pretty hot out, so it's good to be down here in the jungle. But we're not going to be here for long because we're coming out on Lake Chelan. Going to do a little bit of high-speed, twisty pavement riding, and then back up into the high country next. I could really see the Washington Backcountry Discovery Route becoming a benchmark for Washington GS riders. I could see in the future, as new riders enter into the GS community and take up GS riding, that this becomes something that will measure one's progression or one's ability in the sport. It's really a homegrown local yardstick for one's GS riding credibility and abilities right here in Washington State.
So Bryce, we're going to transfer some fuel for you. So this is great. You can take some fuel out of your reserve tank and give it to your friend that ran out of gas or doesn't have enough fuel capacity. And the best thing is you can charge $20 a gallon when you're way out here in the backcountry.
If you are a newbie on a big 1200 BMW, I would say don't do it by yourself if you don't have fantastic experience. Use it as a goal, use it as an achievable thing for yourself, because everybody can do it, but you need to be patient with yourself and don't be stupid, because it's wilderness.
I think it's better for a person to gear up and go for an overnighter and assume that they'll be ready for this trip after 2, 3, 4 overnighters, or maybe a multi-day overnighter. But I don't think you have to assume that this is going to be the maiden voyage for your motorcycle camping experience. That would be kind of a bad idea.
A steep downhill grade takes us to Ruby, an abandoned town that was once a bustling mining community until the silver market collapsed in 1892.
I looked at the map. We are in the middle of nowhere.
After a quick stop for fuel and refreshments in the small town of Concanoli, we head back up into the high country of northern Washington. This is our last night on the route. Tomorrow, we'll ride to the border of Canada and finish the expedition.
For me, this is the longest motorcycle ride I've done, especially for an off-road ride. It's both in miles and in number of days and nights in the woods. This is a long trip for me. It's a lot of fun, of course, and at the same time, it's a heck of a commitment. So it's been very rewarding. It's exceeded my expectations beyond my imagination. I can't even believe that we just did this.
What it does is how we're coming back. Well, you're going to a lot. I think we could go to Canada and turn around and come to like Quebec.
Our journey isn't over yet. We still have one more day of riding to make it to the border of Canada. The last day of riding takes us north over the highest section of the route, Lone Frank Pass, an area where there was a major forest fire in the past.
From this area here at Lone Frank all the way over the ridge, 30 miles, this thing burned. It burned for months. I don't know when it was, but it seems like it was about 10 years ago. 4 firefighters were killed. It was a real tragedy. And I want to make sure we show this region, this area, because even though some people might think it's not very scenic, it's part of the history up here, and actually it's different than the other forests we've been through. It actually opens up and allows more views. It's kind of interesting. Just recently, as of I think 3 or 4 weeks ago, this road was barely, in fact this one, Lone Frank Pass, was barely passable. It had been eroded so bad that I talked to a family recently that came up here. They made it through on quads. They could not make it through in a truck. So right now we have dump trucks and all sorts of road grading vehicles up here clearing this, and we discussed earlier these roads, and why are all these roads here? Why do they maintain them like this?
Yes, for logging?
I think all of them are for logging, meaning they've got to maintain their trunk roads to get access to the side roads and manage the land for logging. Mm-hmm. It's also for fire access. I mean, here we are in a burned out section. They have to be able to get up here quick.
Good point.
And build fire lines, and they don't have time to repair a road to go in and fight a fire. But it's also for recreation. I mean, it's for us.
Yeah.
Riding through, jeeps coming through. It's for people who want to get to high lakes and go fishing.
But you said there was some good forest up ahead. I would like to take some picture of that just to show that in the documentary about this. So why don't we head out and see if we can find another spot you mentioned?
Yeah,
take
let's
some
do
picture.
It. Yeah, let's go.
Right.
The route takes us up the ominously named Skull and Crossbones Ridge. But the only danger here is making our way through a herd of livestock on the road.
I even turned back at the last second to miss it. I saw this big boulder up ahead, and honestly, I thought I had enough room. The boxes are wider than I had anticipated, and I clipped the edge of the boulder. This one took a little bit more of the brunt of the force, and have a look at that. Yeah, so we've got some work to do to get it to where it'll go back on the bike.
He clipped the rock with his pannier. They're hammering things back into shape so he can fit the lids back on his boxes and put them back on the bike, and we can make it to the border this afternoon.
As good as new.
Pretty good.
I got this cool iPad to use for keeping notes and writing up the story of the trip. We're out here for 9 days, and by the time you get to the last day, you really can't remember the details of the first couple of days. So at the end of the day or throughout the day, when we have moments like this, I'm sitting down and taking the opportunity to write all the notes and facts and details from the day's trip.
An old homestead along the way makes for an interesting detour, and we explore an old cabin before heading up to the border. Just before the border, and a little ways off the main route, we stop to hide a geocache for the future riders of the new route.
This is it, guys. Andrew.
Hey. Yeah, nice work, Bryce.
Great job, buddy.
High five. Paul. Good job, guys.
Oh.
Okay. I've got my Garmin 60 CSX, and I'm going to mark the geocache waypoint of where we're going to bury that or where we're going to stash this in just a few minutes. It's got a book inside that's a log book. We've all signed it on the first, this being the first expedition of the Washington Backcountry Discovery Route. And our plan is to leave this up here with the waypoints. People can go online and then try and find it as a geocache and then sign the book as part of doing the Washington Backcountry Discovery Route.
With a great sense of accomplishment, we reach the Canadian border near the town of Nighthawk, marking the end of our journey. But it's just the beginning for other riders and off-road adventurers in Washington State. Now that the route is complete, everyone can get out and experience all of the backcountry beauty that our state has to offer.
It was a lot of fun, but what I'm really excited about now is having the ability to share this, to share the tracks with all of our customers so people can download them right to their GPS and get out and ride it.
That's the only way that it could get passed on to the next generation, is that we get out, we enjoy it, and we talk about it, and we have our adventures and show people what you can do in this incredible backcountry.
What we're doing now is just establishing a baseline, beginning a conversation between all of the adventure riders that would be interested in something like this. This discussion will go on for a long time, and so I hope that all we're doing is planting a seed.
My hope is that people kind of take on our ethic about being low impact, leaving campgrounds clear and site safe, so that the people who've agreed to let us through and the organizations that protect these areas will be happy with the travelers who are coming through for the next decade.
If you're planning to ride or drive the Washington Backcountry Discovery Route, here's some basic information to consider. The Washington Backcountry Discovery Route follows remote roads with high elevation passes. The best season is usually from July through September, depending on the snowpack. The route is approximately 600 miles long and can be done comfortably in 5 to 6 days. There are many campgrounds along the way. Hotels, restaurants, and gas are also available in Stevenson, Packwood, Ellensburg, Kashmir, Chelan, Twisp, Omak, and Oroville. Gas and basic rations are also available in Ardenvor and Concanoli. Bring paper, maps, and a GPS unit with tracks for the entire route. GPS tracks and additional information is available on the WABDR website. National Forest maps for Wenatchee National Forest, Okanagan National Forest, and Gifford-Pinchot National Forest can be purchased at naturenw.org or at local ranger stations. A new WABDR paper map from Butler Maps is available from Touratech USA. Cell phone coverage is not available on much of the route. A satellite communication device is a great idea for this ride for emergency communication if needed. The Nighthawk border crossing is open limited hours, so check the website to confirm that it will be open. Remember to bring your passport if you plan to cross into Canada. Have fun, be safe, and enjoy the ride.